Imagine a quiet village in ancient China, where the mist rolls in over rice fields and lanterns swing gently in the wind. It's late at night, but the village is awake. A procession moves slowly through the narrow paths, musicians play sorrowful tunes, mourners weep silently, and a beautifully decorated coffin is carried with care. But something feels wrong. This isn't a funeral. It's a wedding. And the bride inside that coffin has been dead for weeks. This haunting ceremony wasn't a legend or myth. It was a real practice known as a ghost marriage, or Minghun. In ancient Chinese belief, if a person, especially a man, died unmarried, it brought great shame to the family. Not only was the social line considered incomplete, but the spirit of the deceased was thought to remain restless, lonely, even cursed in the afterlife. Families feared that an unmarried spirit could bring misfortune to their descendants. The solution? Marry the dead. At first, ghost marriages were symbolic, using wooden effigies or spiritual representations. But over time, especially in rural regions like Shaanxi and Shaanxi provinces, the practice grew darker. Families began using real corpses for these spirit weddings. If a young man died suddenly, his family would search for a female corpse, preferably young and recently deceased. The girl would be exhumed, dressed in traditional bridal wear, and married to the dead man in a full ritual. Her body would then be placed in the groom's grave, so they could be together for eternity. It didn't stop there. As the demand for female corpses rose, a black market developed. Grave robbers and body traders began stealing young women's bodies to sell them for these ghost weddings. The fresher the corpse, the higher the price. This created a horrifying underground economy, where death was not the end, but a cruel opportunity for profit. Some families even offered rewards to hospitals and morgues to notify them of fresh female deaths. Historical records show that during the late Qing dynasty and into the Republican era, ghost marriages became disturbingly common. Entire villages would attend these ceremonies, complete with red wedding dresses, traditional feasts, and dowries. It looked like a normal wedding, except the bride was cold, silent, and stitched at the mouth. Even more disturbing were the cases where living girls were married to the dead. In poor families, a daughter could be promised to a deceased man for money or social advancement. The girl, usually a teenager, would move into the dead groom's family home, serve as parents, and live as a widow for the rest of her life. She would sleep beside his grave, make offerings to his spirit, and never marry another man. These girls were not wives. They were prisoners of ritual. Some ghost marriages even occurred between two dead people. If a woman died young and unmarried, her family might try to find a male corpse to wed her, just to ensure she wouldn't be alone in the spirit realm. Parents feared that an unmarried daughter could return as a ghost and haunt the family, bringing sickness, financial ruin, or infertility. In their minds, marriage, even in death, was essential for peace. The belief behind this practice was deeply tied to the Chinese concept of the afterlife. It was thought that the spirit world mirrored the living world. If one lived unmarried, they would continue to be alone in death. Marriage was not just a social status. It was a spiritual duty. The ancestors had to be honored, and social roles fulfilled, even after death. While the custom had been declining since the 1940s, it never truly vanished. In 2016, authorities in northern China arrested a man who had murdered two women and sold their bodies for ghost marriages. He confessed that families were paying huge sums for female corpses, and he saw an opportunity to profit. These were not ancient crimes. They were happening in the 21st century. The tragedy of these stories is not just in the rituals, but in what they reveal. A society so bound by tradition that even death could not break the expectations placed on individuals. Women, in particular, suffered the most, robbed of dignity in life and in death. They became tools for male honor, even from the grave. These marriages were less about love and more about control, honor, and fear of social shame, of restless spirits, and of breaking ancestral expectations. In the end, the corpse bride was not just a victim of death. She was a victim of culture. In many cases, the families of the deceased believed they were doing the right thing. A ghost marriage was considered an act of love, of restoring balance to the world of spirits. A restless soul they believed could become dangerous, not just to the family, but to the entire village. There were countless stories of unmarried spirits appearing in dreams, whispering for a companion. Entire households claimed to suffer illness, madness, or ruin, until the spirit was finally wed and laid to rest. Folklore reinforced these fears. One tale tells of a young man who died in an accident before his wedding. Soon after, his mother began seeing his shadow outside her door every night. She claimed to hear him crying, whispering that he was cold and lonely. Eventually, she arranged a ghost marriage for him with a local girl who had recently died. After the ceremony, the visions stopped. The house returned to peace. Whether real or imagined, such stories kept the custom alive for centuries. But not everyone agreed with these practices. As China modernized, many Confucian scholars and reformers saw ghost marriages as a sign of backwardness. In 1949, after the Communist Revolution, the practice was officially outlawed. Government campaigns labeled it superstitious, feudal, and harmful to women. For a time, it seemed ghost marriages would fade into history, yet the rituals never fully disappeared. In secret, in the shadows, in remote villages where tradition runs deeper than law, the corpse bride still walks. Old women whisper to one another about signs from the other world. Families still light incense and consult fortune tellers when a child dies young. And even today, there are those who believe that love and duty does not end with death. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of the ghost bride legend is that it reflects the powerlessness of women in historical Chinese society. Whether alive or dead, their bodies were used as instruments to serve men, to preserve a family name, to satisfy a grieving parent, to maintain harmony with the dead. In life, many of these girls had no say in their marriages. In death, they were not even given peace. In some ghost weddings, the bride's body was never even known to the groom's family. A coffin would arrive, sealed, adorned with red silk and fake jewels. Inside might be bones stolen from a grave, or even just sand and cloth arranged to mimic a corpse. The illusion was more important than the truth. What mattered was that the ritual was completed, that the ancestors would rest easy, and that no spirit would return to haunt the living. Today, ghost marriages remain a chilling chapter in the story of China's past. A reminder of how deeply fear and tradition can shape human behavior. They show us a world where death was not an escape from expectation, but another place where roles had to be fulfilled, where reputations had to be protected, and where love was redefined not as choice, but as obligation. In the end, the tale of the corpse bride is more than just a story of the dead. It is a mirror of the living. It shows us what happens when culture becomes a cage, when fear overrides compassion, and when a woman's worth is measured not by her voice, but by her silence.